Welcome in, everybody. I'm Bobby Burton, your host, joined by Jerry Hamilton. We're going to talk a little football this morning, talk a little Longhorns, as well as SEC and national, because it was a whopper of a night yesterday or last night, even with Miami surviving Cal late, Tennessee falling to Arkansas, Vanderbilt beating Alabama. And then obviously Missouri getting walloped by the Aggies. Again, Jerry Hamilton alongside me. We're brought to you by Allegiant Digital Marketing today. We'll talk about those folks in a little bit. But Jerry, we're going to open it up to questions and talk about the different things. Let's start with that Vanderbilt-Alabama game. Some people are now in the chat right now kind of wondering whether or not this is an interesting situation for our boys in Alabama. Is Kalen DeBoer a function of the style of play and where he's played? Dan, he's 108-12 as a head coach, but look at the competition he has faced to create that record. He won a lot of nail biters at Washington the last two seasons, and it came back to bite him against Vanderbilt. I will say he did win a lot of nail biters at Washington, but he may not have had the defensive personnel he's expected to have at Alabama, and he did win the nail biter against Georgia just last week. Pretty good coach, but is he overrated is the question.
No, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day if he coaches 15 more years. No, the guy's 8-0 against Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, and Steve Sarkisian. I mean, upsets happen. Now, the guy's a great coach. Also, first year there, great coach. But nah, not for me, man. Guy's won everywhere he's been. He'll win there. Now, I'll say this for Sark, Lanning, Kirby, DeBoer, anybody. It's going to be harder than ever to win a national championship in a 12-team playoff than going to be 16.
And why is that? It just because the parity. I mean, that's what I wrote down two things that I wanted to talk about this morning, Jerry. I wrote down parity in college football. That's what I think we saw a little bit of yesterday. And then also wrote down run game. Do you have to have a run game? Because Texas right now, as I watched the SEC yesterday unfold, I think just about every opponent left on the Texas schedule, with the exception of OU, may have a better run game than the Longhorns. But do you need a run game to win a championship anymore? I looked to the Super Bowl, and the Kansas City Chiefs don't have a great run game. So anyways, I want to talk about parity. Let's start with that one, because that's the big one for me. I looked around college football yesterday, and I saw what I thought was signs of parity. Arkansas comes back after going down 14-3 and wins that game over Tennessee at home. Something you mentioned on this morning show, you felt like the home field advantage means more than in college football. But what about parity? And you just made that comment that you think it's going to be harder than ever to win a national championship. Is it also going to be harder than ever to go undefeated?
Yeah.
That's the feeling I'm getting.
Yeah, I think because of the parity in college football, the home field means even more. And we're also in the rent-a-player free agency day and age. And I think the sport's better than it's ever been because of the playoff, and there's more fan base. I mean, the SMU fan this morning, they're looking at the schedule saying, can we do it? Do we have a shot to do this? Could we possibly get to a play? That hadn't happened. I mean, so college football to me is in the best place it's been maybe ever. But that doesn't mean it's not without some negatives. And I think one of those negatives is, we're in the free agency day and age. And so I'm not sure, all these teams take every opponent as seriously as they would if they were one cohesive recruited team, been built together and grown up together, so to speak. So I think there's some differences, but I think the main thing is the parity, the portal, the parity. Diego Pavia, we talked about it. After they beat Vautech, you knew Vanderbilt was different this year. They said he gives them hope. He gives them a chance, and he's given them a chance every game. Yeah, they lost to Georgia State on the road, but he's given them a chance in every game, and he's going to be probably a third team all SEC quarterback this year, the way he's going, if they can keep him healthy. But I think parity makes the home teams even the home field advantage even bigger now. I really believe that. The other thing, and I don't know if it was a 1 week thing, people will start doing studies after the season, but if you're on the road, your third down defense, that was pretty critical yesterday.
Yes. I mean, clearly, Alabama couldn't get off the field against Vanderbilt because they had a dual threat quarterback that they clearly weren't ready for, by the way. That you could tell Alabama was not ready for that. And then Tennessee had a problem getting off on the third down against Taylor Green early in that game. Yeah. The first half, Arkansas absolutely dominated.
They ran 44 plays the first half.
Arkansas absolutely dominated, but only led 3-0 at half. And then in the second half, Arkansas started dominoing on some of those drives they had and made it happen. Jerry, I also want to announce a lot of people are saying happy birthday to someone, a good friend of ours in the chat. Today, Ashley asked, please tell me Rod is joining. No, Rod is not joining because today, Rod Babers is his birthday.
But he'll be on tonight.
He'll be on tonight, so y'all can wish him happy birthday tonight. But we wanted to put that out there. Our good friend Rod Babers having a birthday today. Happy to have him. All right, we've got a couple other things that we want to talk about as well. We'll talk about that Texas run game in just a minute. But first, I want to go to Tracy Jackson. Here's hoping to Texas being number one in both polls. And this past week shows you can't sleepwalk into a game like Tennessee and Bama did. I completely agree with you about Texas not being able to sleepwalk into any game. I don't know that there's a game on the schedule left right now that Texas can afford to sleepwalk in. I mean, look, you can make the argument that Texas has a chance to go 7-0 or 6-1 down the stretch. Now with Kentucky and Vanderbilt showing signs of life, with A&M doing what they're doing, with Georgia and Oklahoma also being difficult potentially, and Kentucky showing what they did against Ole Miss, every single game on that schedule is going to be tough for Longhorns in one form or fashion. Every single one. So you don't get a day off. Texas is not getting a day off in the SEC. A lot of people in the preseason thought Texas had a relatively weak SEC schedule. And what do they think now? Right? What do they think now?
Hey, a couple of things. I wanted to point out Todd Lacey, Justin Yarber. I'll bring up one was talking about Tennessee. That the one thing that I took away from that game for Tennessee, one, you can't do that roughing the punter play by them when they're about to get the ball around midfield, and Arkansas ended up getting a field goal out of that was a horrific play by Tennessee. On the road, you can't make that play. You were about to get the ball in your 45 or even 50 in more control of that game. Then the other thing is, experience at quarterback certainly does matter. Nico had some really bad plays down the stretch in that game.
Yeah, he did. He definitely didn't look like he was a great quarterback, in my opinion, in a number of different ways. Bad decisions, one read, a lot of different things there. All right,
and Bobby, then it ended with he didn't get the ball out of his hands with 6 seconds left in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I want to say thank you to our sponsor. Then we'll get to more questions and get talking a little bit more about football. Did you know that among the top 9 challenges business owners face, the most difficult ones include finding customers, increasing brand awareness, digital advertising, and lead generation? What if I could point you to a local homegrown agency here in Austin that could solve these problems and more for your business once and for all? For more than 25 years, Allegiant Digital Marketing founder and CEO Chad Markham, a UT grad and instructor of the Digital Marketing Boot Camp at UT Austin, has helped thousands of businesses overcome these challenges. Take advantage of their Hook 'em Horn special and save up to $2,500 in advertising. Visit allegiantdigital.com /on Texas football to learn more today. Jerry, we talk about that Tennessee game. Let's talk a little bit about the Aggies because they started off the day yesterday really showing some. I know people want to say that they just kind of beat a team that got down, got a couple of knocks against them early. touchdown called back, a bad incompletion called. But really, the Aggies showed they could run the football as well as anybody in the SEC yesterday. I really believe they showed that. We'll see if that plays out for them long term. But right now, the Aggies lead the SEC. They're 3-0. The next closest is actually Texas at 1-0 in the conference. What are your thoughts on the A&M Missouri game yesterday?
Yeah, I'm looking up some stats on A&M too, real quick. But CJ and I did our SEC show Thursday, and the one thing I said for A&M is the strength of their team is still their defensive front. They have recruited a high level on the defensive front for multiple years now. They got a first rounder out of the portal from Brian and Nick Scourton. If you can't handle their defensive front, Mike Elko is a very competent defensive coach. You have to be able to handle their defensive front. Missouri could not handle their defensive front. They will play – well, Texas will be able to. But the good thing – and we were talking about this, CJ and I, Bobby. The winner of the A&M Missouri game was absolutely a contender in the SEC. And I'm not sitting there saying A&M's going to win the SEC championship. But what I am saying, they don't have Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, or even Oklahoma on their schedule. They have got the best schedule. Texas has a schedule that's looking a little tougher now, but is still a very manageable schedule. Missouri had a very manageable schedule. I thought those are the three teams I was looking at schedule-wise that said, man, those three, the winner of that game Saturday in College Station was going to have a real shot to contend in the SEC. Now, you have to go out and win your games, but just look at the rest of A&M's schedule. I mean, they have a very good schedule to go into the Texas game, either 9-2 or 8-3. I mean, they just do, and you have to be able to handle their defensive front. And the other thing though I'll say is, if you can play in Missouri defensively, obviously is taking a step back now. If you can play press coverage against A&M and bring some pressure, I still wonder about their wide receivers against the talented team.
They look good on some back shoulder throws yesterday. I thought A&M looked really, really good yesterday, and we'll have to wait and see what that goes. Tom Bregman's asking, is Texas number one? I think most likely they will be. The AP poll, which is the one that everybody quotes, even though the coaches poll, Texas has been still maintained being number one in. The AP poll doesn't release until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon Central. So be aware of that. Greg C., thank you for the super chat here. Greg has this question, Jerry. Because of conference realignment, do you think the longer travel distance has a negative impact physically and mentally on the traveling team? I think it does, and I'll give you case in point. Last night, Cal hosted Miami. Miami didn't wake up until it was 3 a.m. East Coast time. I just want to be clear. They won that game at about 12:30 or 1 a.m. At night Central time, which would have been 2:30 or 1 to 2:30 and 1 to 2 o'clock East Coast time.
That's right. That's right when you're coming in from a night at South Beach for those players.
That's what I'm saying. So yes, I do think that the longer travel distance has a negative impact physically and mentally on a football team. I mean, yeah, Michigan going all the way to Washington. Now, I don't think that Washington win was a fluke. I don't think Michigan still doesn't have a quarterback. But the point being, I absolutely agree with Greg that a lot of this travel, I mean, that's a lot of strain. More time sitting on a plane, it's a lot of strain on people. What do you think?
Well, the game I was going to point to was USC at Minnesota.
Yeah, another one.
Here's the issue.
Back to the Midwest.
Yep. And here's the issue for USC in that conference. All those kids did not sign to play at USC thinking and getting excited about playing at Minnesota. Zero chance. That is, but again, I think home field is worth more than ever now because of more parity in college football due to the portal. But if you don't bring it every week, you're going to get beat. Like Donnie Wilson in a chat said, Tennessee's not a top 5 team. My question, who actually is? Who actually is? And look, Ohio State hasn't been tested. Their offense hasn't been tested truly yet. and they haven't faced a real test. Their first one's in Oregon. Texas defense has not been tested by what I would say is a high-level offense or even a good quarterback yet. So who is? We're going to find out, but I think that is why college football is in such a great place right now. Is there so many teams with hope that actually have a reason to follow their season more so than in the past, other than just loving their university? They actually have a light at the end of the tunnel as programs to be in a playoff. I mean, look at Boise State right now. Look at their fan base right now. And I know they don't have the fan base the SEC teams do, but I just think that's why college football is in a great place. But I'm not sure anybody could really put a list, because Penn State's not a top 5 team to me, but they're going to be ranked there.
Yeah.
Miami's not a top 5 team to me with that atrocious defense, but they're going to be ranked there. They're going to, like, Miami has gotten 2 calls 2 weeks in a row that essentially could have changed games. The non-targeting call last night.
That was ridiculous. I mean, what if that's not targeting? What is?
Yeah, that was unbelievable.
He went forward with his head down.
Yeah. Miami doesn't have the defense. The crazy thing though is, you know, and I have fun with Dabo, but Clemson's playing at a pretty high level right now.
Oh no, they're going to win the ACC.
Looks like
Juan Garza has this one for us. Thank you, Juan, for the super chat. I bet Sark loved what happened yesterday, so he can show the team, like you said, sleepwalk, and you get beat. I bet Sark has this team motivated. Hey, it's hard to get 18 to 22-year-olds excited each and every week for different opponents. It just is. And I think that's a little bit of what we saw. I mean, how do you get up for Vanderbilt after you just played Georgia in a barn burner the week before?
Yeah.
I mean, emotionally, much less physically, where you have a running quarterback. I mean, Vanderbilt really did a number on Alabama. And I think while it does serve as a blueprint for Sark and how to deal with these guys, I think it's also very I think it's just indicative of maybe where college football is when you're playing teams that all have pretty good talent. I mean, it feels a little like the Big 12, right, Jerry? When you have everybody that has a quarterback or a defense that can move around. The one thing I did not like, and I'm seeing some comments in the chat, and if I can't bring those up, we don't have Matt with us this morning, so he can't bring them up as easily. But, Jerry, I'm seeing some people talk about the poor sportsmanship that Alabama showed at the end of that game. Malachi Moore there was no place for that in college football.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw it, but throwing his mouthpiece across the thing, kicking the ball after it's been placed into play, that was really poor sportsmanship. I mean, if you can't act like you've been there before, bud, win or lose, I did not like that much. So I will say this. We'll take this super chat real quick. Is Ryan Wingo equally as good as the Bama star freshman receiver? We don't rely on Wingo like Bama does their freshman. I got to be honest. I don't know that Bama has other guys outside of their freshman receiver that compare favorably to what Texas has at receiver. I mean, Isaiah Bond was their best receiver a year ago. He's now at Texas. I mean, they don't have guys like they used to have. They do rely more on Williams, and it has nothing to do with him being a freshman. It has to do with him being a freak and a great player. And I will just say this. I think that he may be a different category of special even than a Ryan Wingo. What he may have is the playmaker gene within the speed, athleticism. I mean, just his agility, Jerry, was freaky again this week on display on that long touchdown pass.
Yeah, no, he's it's a great group of freshman receiver, man. Freshman receivers in college football. Cam Coleman at Auburn's really good throughout their QB struggles. There's a really good young kid over at Tennessee as well. But I mean, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Wingo, and Ryan Williams, I think are even a cut above on the field this year. But I think Ryan Williams, having seen him in person twice as well in high school, going down to see KJ Lacey after he committed to Texas, he has got something different with the ball in his hand. The two guys I've seen that may be even different with the ball in their hand are him and DeCorian Moore. different level guys with the ball in hand.
I've got to say this: the thing that just surprised me again yesterday, he's tight-roped the sideline twice.
Yep.
I mean, against Georgia, everybody saw that play, and I was like, how did he stay in bounds? A, B, how did he make two defenders miss? And then C, how did he actually have the speed after kind of regathering himself to actually speed away from people? That was three wow moments in a single play last week. This week he goes up and he leaves his feet to make a catch, yet still tight ropes down the sideline. I mean, that's a special player and one we'll hear about. This one from Sugar Daddy. The SEC runs through Austin, Texas. It's going to be a look. I know if Texas somehow beats OU and Georgia and Vanderbilt and Kentucky and Florida, all these teams, by the way, other than Kentucky, won yesterday. In Oklahoma, they didn't play. Think about it this way. It could run through College Station on the weekend after Thanksgiving.
I jokingly
talk. A&M could be playing for it all.
I jokingly said before the season, our prediction show, that if A&M navigated their schedule, the first part of the schedule, that they had a schedule to make a run. And could you imagine the first A&M Texas game, the rivalry coming back actually has playoff implications? Yeah. I think it may be playing out that way, honestly.
I agree. Sugar Day also says that A&M or the SEC belongs to Texas. We got the other questions that we want to get to. This one from Kenneth Cassidy. It's what I talked about at the Open, Jerry. Bobby, are you worried that Texas's run game won't keep up with the other teams in the SEC? Everyone that won yesterday in the SEC had really good power running. They did. They had better running than their opponents in the games. And I completely agree, Kenneth. That's why I asked that question at the very outset of this. Texas does not have a power running game this year. You can say Jarrett Gibson is part of that, but he's not your 1A or 1B guy right now. He's number 2 or 3. And so Texas does not have a power running game. That's what we've talked about with them needing to manufacture it. And you can look at everybody left on their schedule with the exception of Oklahoma as having a better running attack maybe than Texas in some ways. Now, to that point, I also mentioned in the Open here that, look, what does the Kansas City Chiefs run game look like?
Right.
Look, not everybody, and I'm not trying to, hold this over it, but there are different ways to win. The question is your quarterback and offensive line and receivers good enough to take some of that out of the hands of the run game? But it'll be interesting because Texas, you're right. I mean, Kentucky will be a power run team. Georgia will be a power run team, play action off of it. What are your thoughts, Jerry?
Yeah, so I kind of look at it from a point standpoint. Like the one thing I looked at yesterday, if you watch the Tennessee-Arkansas game, is Texas will score more points than Tennessee did in Fayetteville. And now I will say this: November games, health matters a lot, and we're not even in the first. We're in the first weekend of October. Let's see. Taylor Green almost got knocked out for the season last night, and we'll see if has any long-lasting damage from that hit. Sometimes on those hits, you can have a meniscus issue. So we'll see. I'm sure they got him an MRI and what that will reveal. So the health matters a ton in November, especially in this rugged conference. But I see Texas. My thing with Texas is their pass game's an extension of the run game. So as long as they continue to be successful in that, they're going to score enough points to win all those road games. The big issue for me is with Texas is what happened against Mississippi State, where somebody just grinds on you and you can't get off the field on third down. If that happens in a road game, you can have issues. That's the thing that I think Texas is going to score enough points to win those games, even if the short passing game is an extension of your run game. And I do think Texas will run the ball when they need to. It's not going to be maybe as good as it would have been before the season. But I think that short passing game, I just think Texas is going to be able to score enough points. The thing that would concern me is that Mississippi State game. If something like that happens on the road against a better opponent, that's where it gets really dicey for you, in my estimation. But look, I don't think there's any perfect teams in college. Like, look, what's Howard going to do at Ohio State? Is Ohio State's offensive line really, truly good enough? Texas defensively, are there a couple issues that might pop up later in the season? There's unknowns even with the top 2 ranked teams right now that they have to prove out. There's no perfect teams. I think the days of these great teams that grow together and win together are over. That we're in the free agency world. So I don't think there's any perfect teams out there. I think the biggest thing is you have to navigate and mask your weaknesses a little bit better nowadays.
All right. I want to take a second real quick to say, please join the discussion with us about college football and the Longhorns over at ontexasfootball.com. We have a message board. Join the community. You guys have been great on there talking about the games all weekend long. Been a lot of fun. You can actually get a subscription. Not all the content is premium, but some of it is. And if it is, and you want to participate in that, you can actually get a subscription for just $39.95 for a year. Use the promo code OTFOG. That's OTFOG, and you get $20 off the annual subscription by going to ontexasfootball.com. All right, I mentioned earlier that it typically takes about to 1 o'clock before we know whether or not the Longhorns will be the number 1 team in the country again. We'll see what that exactly means, but that's where that is at right now. Jerry, I've got a quick question for you because this came up yesterday and it was flashing all over the screen on Friday and Saturday on the ESPN ticker. Jakeem Stewart, the big defensive lineman out of New Orleans, is reclassifying from 2026 to 2025. Is Texas interested, or is there any chance at snagging him? And I want to ask you another thing. Have you heard any update on the potential of Zealous Hicks reclassifying? That's the 2026 defensive back out of Georgia that Texas has already got a commitment from. Is there any update on that, or Jakeem Stewart, or any other player potentially reclassifying to 2025?
Yeah, I think Zealous Hicks is still working on that. I actually put up a post on ontexasfootball.com a little bit more on that. I think there's definitely a shot that could happen. On Jakeem Stewart, I don't know. I mean, Texas is interested. Everybody's interested, but I think it would be take a large commitment.
Large NIL commitment. I mean, it sounds like this is going to be an NIL play. And he was the number 1 ranked player in the class of 2026 overall nationally. So I think it's going to be
this will be about as potentially as big of a deal as we've had.
All right, I want to go to Ted Party for this. Didn't have L's for unbeaten SEC teams from teams we play away games with on my bingo card from Arkansas and Vanderbilt for sure. Sark has fuel, and I guess even A&M to that point. Sark has fuel to get kids motivated, and those games will mean more because of these upsets. I agree, Ted Party, and we're talking about that. I wanted to add this. If Texas I thought that Tennessee, Alabama, by the way, might get game day in 2 weeks. I really did think that because Tennessee and Alabama were both undefeated. They were both going to be in the top 5. All they had to do is survive the next 2 weeks to get there, and Alabama, Tennessee would be game day. Yep. Well, I got news for you. In 2 weeks, if Texas can escape this week against Oklahoma, game day most likely will be in Austin for Texas versus Georgia. But Texas has to win. Nick V talks about this. He says, Texas, thank you for the super chat, Nick. Texas has the OL for the running backs. The holes are there, but everyone in that room is either dinged up or fumbling. Texas has the guys for the job. I don't know that they do. Jerry, I mean, with Cedric Baxter on the shelf, with Christian Clark out, with Jarrett Gibson only being a true freshman, do they really have – like I look at Jaquindon Jackson last night for Arkansas. he looked like a guy that could get a couple of yards for you when you needed it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know that Texas has that guy. They're much more of a makeshift running game right now for me, Nick V, even with the offensive line. What do you think? Does Texas have the running backs, first of all? Second of all, what are your thoughts overall on the Texas running game?
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with Bobby. If you come up with that one game where those holes aren't there and you just have to lean on people in power and just pretty much push the pile and fall forward for two, make 2 or 3 physical tough yards 10 times in a game, because that's the only run game you can muster against one team you may play, the way a game goes or whatnot. Defensive line has a really good day against you. One guy dominates your butt. I mean, those possibilities are there. Does Texas have that one guy? I don't think so right now. Jarrett Gibson's a freshman. He's got to learn to keep his eyes up a little bit more consistently, and that will come with time. But that is what was lost with a Cedric Baxter to me. I think the offensive line, and by the way, we haven't even talked about Texas OU. I think the most important thing in the Texas OU game this week is the Texas offensive line. It needs to be an at Alabama or an at Michigan performance from the Texas offensive line, because the strength of Oklahoma is their front seven. If Texas offensive line has a really good game, Oklahoma will be in trouble keeping Texas from scoring points in that game. But to that point, if you just get in that one game, and the good thing is one game doesn't define your season anymore. But if you get in that one game where they just stifle what you do, and they man up with your offensive line and it's a wash, do you have that guy in between the hash marks that can go get it when nothing's there? That remains to be seen. I think that's a question.
We're going to go up until just about when the NFL games kick here in about 5 minutes. So we'll try to get through these as quickly as possible. I think OU's defense is good, not great. Sugar Daddy says Tennessee offense looked mid yesterday. It absolutely did. And Nico,
that's the reason.
He's just a sophomore. I think people think he was as good as he is. I'm not sure he's much less the best quarterback in that class, even one of the top 4 or 5. I don't know that he's a quarterback right now in some ways, because I think he has issues with accuracy downfield, and I think he's kind of a not real fast thinker on the football field.
Well, the last play of the game last night, if I was a Tennessee fan, I'd be concerned, because there were 6
seconds. You got to at least put the ball in the air.
Man, look, I don't care if you're 14, 15, 18, or 22. There's 6 seconds left to go in the game. You just had a timeout, and you didn't get the ball out of your hand.
Yeah, bad news.
That was like a guy who's never played quarterback before, which is a scary thought for Tennessee fans. So he'll probably be okay, but that's about as bad of a play as for a fan base to see from a young quarterback. I'd be taken aback. I'd be like, whoa, now that was not good.
Yeah. Albert Pola has another one for us, Jerry. Who will our defensive staff tap to spy on Michael Hawkins? If we stop his running ability, that'll stifle OU's offense. I know that there is absolute legitimate truth to that. And we've been talking about this, Jerry. Is it going to be an individual, or maybe it's a group of people, depending on down and distance and personnel groupings on the field? Obviously, I think Anthony Hill would be a natural. I'm not so sure it won't be, though, David Benda. What do you think, Jerry?
I don't want to take away Anthony Hill's aggressive. Now, you could do multiple guys at multiple times, right? But I think a lot of that answer to that question is, how does OU's offensive line hold up early in the game?
Yeah,
because if they're not able to hold up, I mean, I'm not sure you need to, honestly. If that offensive line doesn't give him a chance, then that's going to be there's the whole key other, obviously, turnovers in this game, right? You cannot turn the ball over on your own end of the field in a rivalry game like this. Just too much momentum swings, like an NCAA tournament game for those that haven't been there before. It's wild. The other thing is, these offensive lines, this is what this game's going to come down to. If Texas offensive line handles Oklahoma's front and the Stutzman and Kip Lewis, then Quinn's going to have guys running open because there's just too much speed on the field. The flip side is if Oklahoma's offensive line can't stand up in this game, like Missouri couldn't against A&M yesterday. They could not stand up yesterday against A&M's D-line. And I'm not saying Texas D-line is as good as A&M, but if Oklahoma's offensive line can't at least stand up to Texas defensive front Saturday, I don't see how Oklahoma wins the game. If Texas offensive line plays well and the Oklahoma offensive line doesn't stand up, I mean, that's when I think that game could get up potentially a little ugly.
I'm going to go against you a little bit on that. I don't care what the defensive line, and it looks like against OU's offensive line. I think they have to spy Michael Hawkins no matter what, Jerry.
Yeah.
They have to limit his running ability because that may be that in the deep ball may be the only two things they have right now that they can go to. You've got to take that away no matter what, in my opinion. Boo Corrigan says, any concern with Lance Jackson going to Arkansas this weekend, or is that just because of Landon? We heard a little bit about this last week, Jerry, that he would be going up there. You made some contact and heard it was strictly because of his brother Landon, who played a really, really good game last night, by the way, for the Razorbacks.
Yeah, I think at this point, Lance wants to be at Texas, right? And if that changes, obviously we'll hear about it. But at this point, Lance wants to be at Texas.
Okay. All right. Before we get to the final super chats, we want to say thank you to you guys and also tell you about our On Texas Football shop. Jerry, let them know about it.
Yeah. Look, I don't have the hat on today because I've been sweating. I've been cycling this morning. But I have multiple of these hats. The one on the right, when we're looking at the one on the left, the coffee mug in the middle. The gray hat obviously is my favorite. I have the black hat. I have all of them as well. My son wears the On Texas Football one on the right and absolutely loves it. I want to see On Texas Football hats walking around Bevo Boulevard before the Georgia game. That's my goal. So jump in, buy one. Bobby Burton will autograph it.
Shop.ontexasfootball.com is the address. Shop at ontexasfootball.com. All right, guys, a couple other notes here. George Lopez, what's the latest on DB and RB recruiting in 2026? Great content as always. We talked about Zealous Hicks a little bit, Jerry. Potential, if academics get in order, of him reclassifying to 2025. What about other DBs in 2026 and then the RB situation in 2026 as well? We know Javion Osborne, young man out of Forney, is at least part of that. What's your answer there?
Yeah, I actually put up an update on ontexasfootball.com this morning about 8 o'clock, somewhere around there, that Amari Latimer, the 26 running back from Sandy Creek in Tyrone, Georgia, that was one of the stops. I exchanged some messages with Latimer. That was one of Tashard Choice's stops Friday in the Atlanta area. Latimer was offered on January 25th by Choice. He's been on campus once. He's planning to come back for the Texas-Georgia game. And that Tashard Choice did stop by the school. He is that bigger back. Now, I think Texas, for that conversation earlier, I think Texas has two guys coming in, by the way, right now. Well, Cedric Baxter when he comes back, Christian Clark, assuming he comes back, two of those guys. But James Simon in the 25 class, I think is going to be a really good downhill SEC back. And I'm not saying power back, that's his only thing. He's versatile. But that 5'11", 215, 220-pound frame guy, I think Texas has one of those. I think that's a big reason they really like Amari Latimer to be long-winded at Sandy Creek. He's 6 foot, 200, 205 right now. And he's going to weigh 215, 220. And he's got some of that in him. That's a good scheme fit for Texas. So we'll see if they can get him as one of the two running backs in this class. Now, he has offers from a lot of the SEC schools, as well as Florida State and Ohio State and Penn State and people like that. He's a 4-star running back. So I think that Latimer out of state, Javion Osborne in-state definitely have Texas' attention right now. We'll see. They've also offered some other guys from out of state. We'll see who makes it to campus here in the next 3 or 4 months. On DB recruiting, that's a little bit more of an interesting question in 26. You know, there's some guys I think Texas likes. I'm not sure there's any that are just head and shoulders above the rest. I think that position is still very much being evaluated by Texas. I think you'll see more decisions there probably after the season, headed in those January junior days at that position.
Okay. George Lopez, thank you so much for that. And we'll talk more about DB and RB recruiting. We got the recruiting breakdown later this week as well. And we may talk some recruiting tonight on the live stream too. This one from Charlie990. Thanks for the super chat. Why did Sark not run the clock when he was up 2 scores on Mississippi State in the 4th? Is it some weird tiebreaker thing for the SEC conference? I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think it had to do with him wanting to get his young quarterback and offense some confidence after 2 turnovers in that game. They only scored 14 points, don't forget, in the first half. And the last one was in the 2-minute drill. So I think Sark really wanted to get some confidence going for his offense. Sugar Daddy has this one, Jerry, for us both. OU sucks. Thank you so much, Sugar Daddy, because for reminding us not that we need any help. Not that we need any help, by the way, on knowing that. All right, Jerry, I know NFL has started, so we'll let everybody get going on their way. Again, Texas expected to move to number 1. That will not be official until about 1 o'clock Central. And we will be there talking about that and more over on ontexasfootball.com. Jerry, any final thoughts before we let people go for the afternoon here a little bit?
Yeah, for the chat. We're going to talk about tonight. One of the things that we want to talk about tonight with Rod, keys to victory for Texas versus Oklahoma. Think about what your keys to victory are. And yes, Tom Bregman, we're live at 7 tonight. Think about what your keys to victory are, and let's talk about it tonight. Because Texas OU is here. It's here. Yeah. Texas will be ranked 1. Oklahoma will probably be ranked 17, 18. The bye weeks get you both bumps for both teams, as it turns out. But what are your keys for victory Saturday? And Sandman asked favorite fair food. You know what mine is. I'm going to do it live Saturday morning before the game.
Antoine had probably the best question of the day. And it was the very first one, so I'm saving it for the last before we say goodbye here. What's the bigger upset? Vandy over Alabama, Appalachian State over A&M, Appalachian State over Michigan, Northern Illinois over Notre Dame. I got to be honest, when Michigan lost that game to App State, when A&M lost to App State, when Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, none of those teams were ranked number 1 in the country. Yep. Yesterday, Alabama went down to a long-time doormat of the SEC.
Yep.
So hats off to Vanderbilt, the Commodores winning a big one. Somebody said, well, what about Kansas over Texas? At that point, Texas wasn't Texas. This was Alabama being number 1 and getting beat. But great day of college football. Miami we didn't even talk about it. They came all the way back to beat Cal. We got more to talk about. We later. Guys, a lot of fun. We'll be back at 7 o'clock, no later than that tonight for the live stream. Birthday boy Rod Babers will be joining us as well. For Jerry Hamilton, as well as our sponsor, Allegiant Digital Marketing, I'm Bobby Burton. Hook 'em, guys.